A lone human soldier saves a young alien princess during a forbidden war between species. He expects gratitude, yet finds himself entangled in a matriarchal alien culture where rescue means claim. When the queen, her mother, invokes the ancient bonding law, he's forced into a dangerous position between duty, desire, and diplomacy. What begins as an act of mercy becomes the spark that changes two civilizations forever. The sky was on fire, not in the poetic way humans used to describe sunsets, but literally. Ash rained like gray snow over the wreckage of two worlds colliding. The human pilot staggered through the smoking crater, his visor cracked, oxygen hissing from a suit not built for this moon's thin, acid-tinged air. His name was Commander Eric Vale, though right now, rank meant nothing. His ship was gone. His unit was gone. All that remained was the echo of their last transmission. Do not engage. Observe only. But then he heard it. A sound so faint it barely cut through the static in his helmet. A cry, high and broken, like glass whispering against wind. It came from somewhere beyond the shattered ridge. He hesitated only for a second. Orders were one thing, humanity was another. Eric climbed the ridge, sliding on melted rock and shards of alien metal. The battlefield stretched below like a graveyard painted in ultraviolet. Towering machines lay toppled, their alien glyphs still glowing faintly. And among them, half-buried beneath a collapsed crawler, was something alive, someone. At first, he thought it was a human woman. The shape was familiar enough, but when he knelt and brushed away the soot, he saw the truth. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver beneath the dust, veins pulsing faint blue under the glow. Her hair, tangled and streaked with ash, caught the dying light like threads of molten glass. And her eyes, when they flickered open, held the color of distant storms. She flinched at the sight of him, trying to crawl away, but pain pinned her down. One of her legs was crushed beneath the wreckage. Eric's translator pinged uncertainly, cycling through dead languages until it found a match. "Human soldier?" she rasped, voice trembling like wind through crystal. He swallowed hard. "Stay still. You're hurt." Her gaze darted past him, to the sky where alien warships cut burning paths through the clouds. "You shouldn't be here. They'll see you. You'll die." He smiled grimly. "You're welcome." Then, without hesitation, he gripped the edge of the collapsed metal and began to lift. The weight was impossible, the heat unbearable, but he pushed until his vision blurred. When the debris finally shifted enough for her to drag her leg free, he collapsed beside her, coughing blood into his helmet. She stared at him, disbelief flickering across her face. "Why would you save me?" "Because you were alive," he said simply. She blinked slowly, confusion clouding her alien features. "Among my people, mercy is weakness." "Among mine," Eric said. "It's the only thing that makes us worth saving." She looked away, almost ashamed. "You don't understand. You've broken a law." He laughed breathlessly. "Wouldn't be my first time." Above them, thunder rolled, not from weather but from engines. A massive shadow cut across the burning sky. Eric instinctively pulled her closer to the wreckage as the ground trembled. Alien banners shimmered across the hull of the descending craft, royal insignia, etched in starlight. Her pupils widened in fear. "It's my mother's fleet." He turned sharply toward her. "Your mother." The wind shifted, scattering ash from a broken sigil on the metal beside her. A crest, spiraling suns encircling a blade of light. His stomach dropped. Every intelligence report from the last decade had shown that emblem, the seal of the matriarch of Valara. "You're the princess," he whispered. She didn't deny it. "If they find you here, they'll burn your name from existence. You saved me, but they'll call it defilement." Before he could respond, the ground quaked violently. A shockwave of light surged over the crater rim as energy spears tore into the battlefield. He threw himself over her, shielding her body as shrapnel rained down. His suit alarm screamed. The air burned. When silence returned, the world was dim and trembling. The alien princess lay still beneath him, her chest rising faintly. He lifted his head and froze. A holographic seal hovered above them, projected from the descending fleet. It glowed like an eye of judgment, its voice echoing across the crater. Unidentified human life form, you are in violation of Royal Decree 9 Delta. Step away from the royal blood immediately. The princess weakly shook her head. Run, she whispered. He looked at her leg, too badly damaged to move, and shook his own head. Not without you. The holographic eye flared brighter. Resistance will be met with disintegration. He gritted his teeth. Then disintegrate me later. He hoisted her into his arms, ignoring the pain slicing through his side. Her body was cold, lighter than he expected. Her heartbeat quick and alien against his chest. He began to move toward the canyon, scanning for any shelter, any shadow. As they stumbled through the ash storm, the princess spoke faintly against his shoulder. You don't know what this means. Saving me binds you. The law of claim will awaken. He frowned, breath ragged. Sounds like a bad law. It's ancient. It says if one saves royal blood, that life becomes claimed by the matriarch herself. You belong to her now. He almost laughed despite the situation. Yeah, I don't do belonging. She looked up at him, those storm-colored eyes softening. Then you may not live long enough to refuse. They reached a hollow beneath a shattered transport, where the firelight couldn't reach. He set her down gently and began sealing her wounds with emergency gel from his medpack. The nanites hissed, glowing faint blue as they fused with her strange skin. She winced but didn't pull away. Why did your mother start this war? He asked quietly. She closed her eyes. Because humans trespassed where we buried our dead. She believes your kind cannot be taught reverence. He smiled bitterly. She might be right. A silence settled between them, thick, heavy, filled with smoke and breath and heartbeat. For a moment, the battlefield seemed distant, like another world entirely. Then the ground trembled again. Eric looked up, and his blood ran cold. Dozens of figures descended from the sky in waves of violet light. Royal enforcers, armor humming with the same energy that destroyed his squadron. They landed silently, forming a circle around the crater. One stepped forward, spear crackling. The matriarch summons the foreigner who dared touch royal blood, it announced. The princess tried to rise, but her wound bled through the bandages. Don't let them take you. They'll break you before dawn. He stood, placing himself between her and the soldiers. You'll have to go through me first. The lead soldier tilted its head, a strange gesture, half amusement, half pity. You misunderstand, human. You have already been chosen. Before he could move, the spear struck the ground, and light engulfed them both. The world dissolved into white fire. For an instant, he saw her face illuminated, eyes wide with terror, lips parting to speak his name. The sound never reached him. His body lifted, weightless, as the battlefield faded into a blur of stars. The last thing he felt before blacking out was the warmth of her fingers tightening around his. And then, far above the burning moon, a voice whispered. Not from the soldiers, not from the ships, but from the heavens themselves. The claim is witnessed. The sky itself shuddered, as if recognizing something ancient. The clouds split, lightning weaving symbols across the darkness. In that moment, the human pilot's name was written into alien law, and neither he nor the princess would ever be free again. Somewhere, watching through the vast mirrors of her flagship, the matriarch of Valara leaned forward on her throne, her silver eyes narrowing with something that might have been fury or fate. Her voice, low and deliberate, carried through the halls of the ship. Prepare the human. He belongs to me. The forest at the edge of the moon was no true forest. Only petrified trees turned to glass long before the war. Each trunk glimmered like bone beneath the faint blue light of the twin suns. Eric Vale stumbled between them, his lungs aching from the thin air. The princess cradled against his chest. Her breathing was shallow, but steady now, the emergency sealant keeping her alive. He'd escaped the royal enforcers by luck alone. When the transport explosion tore through the crater, He'd used the smoke and chaos to disappear into the wasteland. But he knew they would search for her. Whatever ancient law of claim she'd mentioned had marked him, and he could feel it in the pulse under his skin, as if the moon itself had taken interest in him. He found a hollow beneath the roots of a fallen crystal tree and set her down. His suit systems were dying, battery at 12%, oxygen at 23%. He should have rationed, rested, regrouped. Instead, he tore open another medpack and checked her vitals again, ignoring the red flashing warnings. When she woke, she looked at him as though she couldn't decide whether to thank him or curse him. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered. "My kind, we do not hide with enemies." He gave a short laugh. "You can call me Eric." "Enemy sounds a little cold for someone who carried you through a war zone." Her lips curved faintly, a shadow of humor. "Eric?" she repeated, the sound of it strange and soft in her accent. "That name means nothing to my people." "Then maybe that's good," he said, settling beside her. "Names can start clean." For a while they spoke little. The wind outside hummed through the glass trees, making the air sing like distant bells. She watched the flicker of his small fire with cautious fascination. "You burn wood," she said at last. "You destroy to live. That's one way to look at it." He looked down at her wounded leg. "You're healing faster than I expected." Her silver skin shimmered faintly where the nanites had merged with her tissue. "Your medicine, it obeys me now," she said, almost in awe. "Our blood rewrites what it touches." Eric raised an eyebrow. "So my first aid kit just turned alien?" "Or I did," she murmured. Then she looked up at him with eyes that seemed older than she was. "The stars were right. The stranger of ash walks beneath our moons." He frowned. "The what?" She hesitated, as though speaking something forbidden. "An old prophecy. Before the First War, the seers of Valara spoke of a foreigner born of smoke who would stand between the daughters of the crown. One would love him, one would claim him, and through his choice, our bloodline would either rise or end." Eric exhaled slowly. "You think that's me?" "You fell from the sky in fire," she said softly. "And when you touched me, the heavens trembled." He leaned back against the cold wall of the hollow, shaking his head. "I'm just a pilot who ignored orders. I don't belong in your prophecies." "You belong to her law now," she said almost bitterly. "That's worse." Something in her tone made him study her more closely. "You sound like you don't trust your own mother." Her gaze darkened. "The matriarch trusts no one. She sees people as lines in a ledger, debts and blood. Even her daughters." "Daughters?" he repeated. "Plural." For a moment she said nothing. Then, quietly, "There are 3 of us." The elder rules beside her. "The younger died before I was born. I am the forgotten one, the forbidden heir." "Forbidden?" "She sealed my name from the public archives," she said, "because my father was not of her choosing." Eric stared at her. "You mean?" "He was human," she finished. "One of yours. A scientist from the early colonization wars. She captured him, studied him, fell in love, or thought she did. When he tried to escape, she executed him and hid the child he left behind. Me." The fire crackled softly between them. Eric felt the breath leave his chest. "So you're half human." She looked at him, the ghost of a smile on her lips. "Half mistake, half miracle, depending on who you ask." The silence that followed was heavy but not cold. He looked at her differently now, not just as someone he'd saved, but as someone born between worlds, belonging fully to neither. He understood that feeling more than he wanted to admit. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Lyrian," she said. "But among the stars, they whisper another. They call me the Shadow Daughter." "Lyrian," he repeated. "It fits. You don't fade easy." She tilted her head, curious. "You speak as if you've lost things worth fading for." Eric's jaw tightened. "A lot of good people. My brother was on the cruiser that fell yesterday." "I'm sorry," she said, and for the first time her voice carried warmth instead of warning. "Loss is the only language both our kinds understand." They sat in silence again, broken only by the faint hum of distant engines. When the suns rose, the sky bled red and violet. Lyrian tried to stand, testing her leg. "They will come for me," she said. "And for you. The law binds us both." "Then we keep running," Eric said. "You can't run from a crown written in the stars." He smirked. "Watch me." But before he could finish packing, the ground began to shake. He looked up, eyes widening as a shadow spread across the rising light. Dozens of ships were descending, their hulls gleaming with the mark of the matriarch. Lyrian's breath hitched. "She's here," a booming voice echoed from above, transmitted through the atmosphere itself. "Lyrian of the Forbidden Line, you have broken isolation. You have awakened the claim. The foreigner is bound by decree." Eric grabbed his weapon, useless against that kind of power, and pulled her close. "We can still move. There's cover to the west." "No," she said, gripping his wrist. "You don't understand. If she lands here, no world will protect you." "Then tell me why." "Because I am not just her daughter," she whispered, eyes glimmering like liquid metal in the dawn light. "I am her heir, and by saving me, you have just placed yourself between a queen and her throne." The ground split with the impact of landing craft. Wind howled through the crystal forest as ships opened their bays. A dozen figures in ceremonial armor descended, carrying banners that shimmered like starlight. Lyrian stared toward the flagship, an enormous vessel shaped like a crown turned to flame. Her voice trembled. "You don't know what she'll do to keep me silent." Eric's hand went instinctively to the sidearm at his belt. "Then she'll have to go through me first." She turned toward him, horror and something else, something almost tender, flickering in her eyes. "You can't fight her, Eric. She doesn't kill what she wants. She claims it." The forest filled with light, violet and white. A voice thundered again, closer this time, carried by the very air. "Bring them to me." Lyrian's fingers tightened around his. "It begins," she whispered. Eric lifted his gaze to the burning sky and saw the reflection of his own face mirrored in the hull of the descending ship. The same light that had branded the law across the heavens now pulsed in his skin, faint but unmistakable. Something ancient had bound them both, and as the matriarch's soldiers closed in, he finally understood what she meant by forbidden heir. He wasn't saving a princess anymore. He was standing beside the one woman who could end or ignite a galactic empire. They took him in silence. The soldiers moved like ghosts, their armor whispering as it caught the light of the twin suns. Eric didn't fight them. There was no point. His weapon had been stripped, his suit systems drained, his muscles still aching from the crash. They bound his wrists with luminous bands that hummed faintly against his skin, and when he looked down, he realized they weren't just restraints. They were pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Lyrian tried to reach for him as they dragged her toward another transport, but one of the guards held her back. "You can't," she started, but the soldier's spear flashed, and a field of static cut her off. The last thing Eric saw before they separated them was her face through the shimmering barrier, her lips forming his name without sound. The journey to the flagship was a blur of light and noise. Through the viewing slit, Eric watched the moon's burning surface fall away beneath them. The ship rose higher, through layers of black clouds and electric storms, until the battlefield below looked like a scar across an ancient world. Then the light changed, white, too clean, too sharp, and he knew they were entering orbit. When the doors opened again, he was greeted by silence and gold. The interior of the matriarch's flagship was unlike anything he'd seen. The walls were carved with shifting patterns that seemed alive, their edges pulsing faintly as if the ship itself were breathing. Veins of light ran along the floor, converging in intricate sigils that formed at his feet. The guards led him down a corridor lined with alien statues, warriors, queens, and gods, all with eyes that glowed as he passed. At the end of the hall, massive doors parted with a low, resonant tone. And there she was. The matriarch of Valara sat on a throne of living crystal, the surface rippling like liquid starlight beneath her. Her presence was overwhelming, tall, regal, her skin the color of burnished silver, her hair cascading in strands of luminous white. Her eyes, though, were the most arresting thing. Bright as molten moons, sharp as blades. She regarded him not with hatred, but with curiosity, as though he were some strange artifact dredged up from the deep. "So," she said, her voice low and melodic, vibrating through the air itself, "this is the human who defied my decree." Eric straightened, forcing his voice to remain steady. "If you're going to execute me, I'd rather you skip the speech." To his surprise, she smiled. It was a small, cold smile, but a smile nonetheless. "Execution?" she murmured. "You misunderstand our ways." Two attendants stepped forward, each carrying a vessel filled with shimmering light. They poured it into the grooves etched in the floor, and the patterns came alive, circling him like serpents of gold. He felt the air tighten around him, heat rising off his skin. The queen rose from her throne and began to descend the steps, every movement precise, deliberate. The closer she came, the heavier the air grew, until Eric could hardly breathe. She stopped a few feet from him and studied his face as if searching for something long lost. "You saved my daughter," she said quietly, "when you could have abandoned her to die." Eric met her gaze. "I didn't know who she was. She was just someone bleeding in the dirt." The matriarch's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. A glint of something dangerously close to amusement? "And yet you risked your life for her." "That's what humans do," he said. "Or at least what we try to." She tilted her head, her silver hair catching the light. "You speak as if compassion were a virtue. Among my kind, it is a binding." "I've noticed," he said dryly. The queen's smile deepened. "You are bold. Most would tremble before me. I'm too tired for trembling." For a long moment, she simply studied him in silence. Then, to his confusion, she nodded slightly to her attendants. They withdrew, leaving the two of them alone in the vast chamber. When she spoke again, her tone softened, almost intimate. "Long ago, your kind and mine made contact. Not through war, but through curiosity. One of yours came to my world. He taught us many things. He also betrayed me." Eric felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Lyrian's father," he said quietly. The queen's eyes sharpened. "You know of him?" "She told me." For a heartbeat, something like pain flashed across her face before she buried it beneath her composure. "He was the first human I ever trusted. He promised peace and left us with scars that still bleed." "I'm not him," Eric said. Her gaze didn't waver. "No, you are worse." He blinked. "Worse? You saved royal blood," she said, stepping closer until he could feel the heat radiating from her. "And by our oldest law, any who saves the life of the bloodline is bound to the matriarch herself. The bond is sacred, irreversible." Eric's pulse spiked. "You can't be serious." "I am never anything else," she said softly. "By right of claim, you are mine." For a moment, the words didn't register. Then they hit him like a blow. "Yours? As in what, your servant?" Her lips curved into that same faint smile. "Servant? No. You misunderstand the scale of the law. It binds life to life. You are part of my court now, my protector, my consort." Eric stared at her in disbelief. "I didn't agree to that." "Agreement is irrelevant," she said. "The moment you touched the air, the bond began. It is written in your skin." He looked down and froze. The faint markings that had appeared after the battlefield had deepened, glowing now in the same pattern that surrounded her throne. The lines pulsed faintly, in time with her heartbeat, not his. "What the hell did you do to me?" he demanded. The matriarch's voice was calm, but edged with something dangerous. "I merely invoked what the stars decreed. You carry my mark, and through it my will. In time you will understand its power." "I don't want your power," he said, taking a step back. "But it wants you," she replied, "and it will not be denied." Before he could speak, she raised her hand. The sigils on the floor flared, and a surge of energy shot through him. His body went rigid, his vision white. He saw flashes, memories that weren't his. Vast palaces floating above oceans of glass, a sky burning with twin suns, a young queen kneeling beside a human man with eyes like his own. Then pain, betrayal, fire. When the vision ended, he was on his knees, gasping. The queen stood above him, her expression unreadable. "Now you have seen," she said. "The bond remembers its origin." Eric struggled to his feet, rage and confusion warring inside him. "Why me?" "Because fate has a cruel sense of humor," she said. "And because my daughter was meant to die. You defied that. You broke the balance. Now it must be rewritten." The great doors opened again. Lyrian was led in, her hands free but her expression guarded. When she saw Eric standing there, she rushed forward, but stopped when her mother lifted a hand. "Do not touch him," the matriarch said. "He is bound." "Mother, you can't." "I can, and I have." Lyrian's voice trembled. "He saved me. You owe him freedom." The queen's eyes softened for just a moment. "I owe him life, and life in our law is not freedom." Eric looked between them, realization dawning. "You're not doing this because of a law," he said quietly. "You're doing it because of him, the man who betrayed you." The queen's gaze met his, sharp as glass. "Perhaps," she said, "or perhaps I am doing what must be done to prevent another war." Lyrian stepped forward, defiance in her eyes. "Then you've already started one." The matriarch's expression flickered, and for the briefest instant, something like fear crossed her face. "Take him to the sanctum," she ordered. "He will begin the rite at dawn." The guards moved in, but before they reached him, Eric turned back toward her. "If you think I'll just play along with this, you already are," she said softly. "Every beat of your heart answers to mine now." As they dragged him away, he caught one last glimpse of Lyrian's face. Eyes wide, tears unshed, her lips trembling with words she couldn't say. And somewhere deep inside his mind, beneath the pain and confusion, he heard the matriarch's voice again, soft and absolute. "You saved what was mine. Now, human, you are mine as well." The council chamber pulsed with low, rhythmic light, each glow shimmering across the marble-like stone of the floor. Alien voices whispered in the high domes above, soft, melodic, and full of judgment. The human stood at the center, wrists bound by silver bands that shimmered like liquid under the bioluminescent glow. He could feel them hum faintly against his pulse, as though the metal itself was alive. The queen sat before him on her obsidian throne, her silver crown reflecting the red hue of the distant sun. Her gaze was unreadable, both regal and sharp. "Our law binds life to life," she said again, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. The words struck him harder this time, as if spoken by the world itself. He clenched his jaw, feeling the eyes of a dozen alien nobles pierce through him. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "I saved her because she was dying. That doesn't make me your property." A ripple of low murmurs filled the hall. The queen's attendants exchanged wary glances. "You misunderstand," the queen replied, her tone cool but not unkind. "The law is not about ownership. It is about balance. You interfered with destiny. Now it binds you." The younger princess, standing near the base of the throne, stepped forward. Her luminous eyes caught the faint flicker of the blue fires that floated like will-o-wisps around the room. "Mother," she said softly, "please." He didn't know. He didn't mean to invoke the right. The queen's gaze shifted toward her daughter, eyes softening only slightly. "And yet," she said, "the law does not bend for ignorance. You are heir, child. You know this." The younger one's lips parted, her words trembling on the edge of defiance. But she fell silent. The queen rose slowly, her long robes trailing across the floor like a dark tide. She approached the human with deliberate grace, her scent, a strange, sweet ozone, filling the air. "The markings have begun," she murmured, almost to herself. "The eclipse draws near. The bond will complete itself, whether you accept it or not." The human glanced down at his arm. The veins beneath his skin glowed faintly, forming intricate lines that spiraled into unfamiliar symbols. They pulsed like veins of molten silver, slow and rhythmic. "What are you doing to me?" he whispered. The queen didn't answer. She raised her hand, brushing her fingertips lightly against the back of his neck. For a heartbeat, he saw a flicker, images of an ancient temple, a circle of light, two figures entwined beneath a dying sun. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold hum of the hall. "The bond is ancient," she said. "It predates even our stars. When one saves royal blood, their souls entwine until death balances the act." He stepped back, shaking his head. "No, I don't believe in your myths. I believe in reason." "Then reason will fail you here," said one of the council elders, her 6 eyes narrowing. "The cosmos has already written your name beside hers." The younger princess broke from her guards and ran to him. "You can fight it," she whispered fiercely. "You must. The eclipse ritual, if completed, will make the bond eternal. You'll never return home." Her hand brushed against his, and the markings on both their skins flared in the same pattern. For an instant, it felt like the air itself folded between them. A sharp gasp went through the chamber. The queen's expression hardened. "Enough!" she thundered. "Guards, take him to the sanctum. The rite must proceed before the eclipse wanes." The humans struggled as the silver bands tightened, forcing him toward the exit. "You don't have to do this," he shouted. "If you have laws, then you can change them." The queen's voice followed him down the echoing corridor, soft but final. "Change requires time, human. You do not have that luxury." They dragged him through long corridors carved with spiraling runes, each glowing faintly as he passed. The air thickened with strange energy, humming like a living storm. In the distance, through massive windows of crystal, he saw the sun bleeding into the horizon, its twin setting in the opposite sky. A guard with a half-shrouded face whispered, "You should not have touched her. The rite hungers for completion now." That night, he sat in a chamber lit by blue firestones. His wrists were free, but invisible energy hummed through the air like static. The younger princess appeared silently in the doorway. Her expression was torn between guilt and urgency. "There's a way," she said softly. "If the bond is completed before the eclipse, it's sealed forever. But if we can break the circle before the final phase, before the moons cross, you can be freed." He stared at her, searching her face for truth. "You're willing to risk your mother's wrath?" She smiled faintly, her eyes glimmering. "You saved me when I was nothing to you. I'll do the same." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "When the drums sound for the eclipse, they will take you to the Temple of Binding. The queen herself will lead the rite. You must not let her touch the mark on your chest. If she does, the bond will seal." He swallowed hard, feeling the slow burn beneath his skin intensify. "What happens if I resist?" Her eyes darkened. "Then the bond may still complete, but through pain, not unity." A distant rumble shook the walls. The twin moons had begun their slow alignment. The light filtering through the windows turned crimson, painting her silver skin in hues of blood and fire. She turned toward the window, voice trembling. "Once the light turns white, the moment will come. I'll be there." He looked down at his arm again. The glowing markings now reached his chest, forming a pattern that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Why do I feel like something inside me already knows this ritual?" he asked. She hesitated, her gaze distant. "Because," she whispered, "you are not the first of your kind to touch our fate." The door opened abruptly. The queen's voice called from the corridor. "Prepare the chamber. The eclipse begins." The princess's eyes widened. "It's too soon," she breathed. "They've accelerated the rite." She turned back to him, her voice fierce and desperate. "Remember what I said. Don't let her complete the mark." The guards entered, their armor shimmering with ethereal light. The human's heart pounded. As they led him through the corridors once more, the floor vibrated beneath his feet. The air smelled of ozone and incense, a mixture of sacred and electric. The temple doors opened with a low moan, revealing a vast circular hall where energy coiled like mist. At its center stood the queen, her robes flowing like liquid night. Behind her, the twin moons rose perfectly aligned, merging into a single blinding white light. The queen extended her hand, her voice echoing across the chamber. The law binds life to life. Let the cosmos witness. The energy around him surged, and the markings on his body flared painfully bright. He fell to his knees, gritting his teeth. Through the haze of light, he saw the younger princess step out from the shadows. Their eyes met, and time seemed to freeze. The queen's hand hovered inches from his chest, the mark glowing like a living flame. "Stop," the princess whispered, though no sound should have reached him. "Fight it." He looked up at the queen, the air alive with energy and destiny. "I didn't come here to be bound," he said through clenched teeth. "Then perhaps," the queen said softly, her eyes glimmering like molten silver, "you came here to awaken what was bound long before you." The light flared, and his vision went white. The chamber was steeped in twilight blue, its silence broken only by the faint hum of the energy fields caging him in. The air was heavy, almost metallic, as if charged with the residue of 1,000 forgotten prayers. The human sat near the window slit, staring at the twin moons rising over the alien horizon. One pale, one red, each pulling light across the sky like veils of silk. His reflection shimmered faintly in the glass, the strange glowing lines on his skin slowly pulsing with rhythm. They felt alive now, like something beneath his flesh was listening. A soft chime echoed from the doorway. It slid open without a sound. She stepped through, the younger princess, cloaked in the deep indigo robes of a temple servant. Her silver hair was hidden beneath a hood, but her eyes, luminous and trembling, gave her away instantly. He rose in surprise. "If your mother finds you here," he began, but she lifted a finger to his lips. "She won't." The guards change shifts every 30 breaths. "I don't have much time." Her voice carried the weight of something unsaid. She approached him cautiously, her hand brushing the energy barrier. It hissed, then flickered out. He blinked. "How did you—" "Old codes," she whispered. "Ones my mother forgot still existed." She looked around quickly, then turned her full gaze on him. "You want to understand why she won't release you, why she insists on the bond." He nodded slowly. "Yes, I want to understand why I'm suddenly chained to a law that shouldn't even concern me." She took a trembling breath, as if deciding how deep to go. "Because this isn't the first time it happened," she said quietly. "You aren't the first human to stand where you are." The words hit him like a current. "What are you talking about?" She stepped closer, her hands clasped tightly. "Long before I was born, before the empires divided the stars, there was another, a human from one of your first fleets. He crash-landed here during the War of Inheritance. My mother was a soldier then, not yet queen. She found him dying near the Valley of Glass." Her voice wavered, and she turned slightly toward the moonlight. "She saved him, just as you saved me." He felt the air thin around him. "And the law was born from their end," she said, her eyes darkening. "He loved her. Against every decree, every counsel, every divine warning, he stayed. But the war took him, and when he died, my mother lost more than love. She lost the part of her that could bend." Her eyes flicked up to his face, shimmering with guilt and wonder. "They said she tried to bring him back, that she begged the old gods to bind their souls so his could never escape hers. The gods answered with silence, so she made her own law." He turned away, gripping the edge of the table, trying to process the echo of tragedy in the queen's cold words from before. "Life to life," he murmured. "That's what she meant." The princess nodded slowly. "The first binding was never completed. The eclipse failed that year. Some believe his spirit never left, that the law itself searches for what was lost." He stared at her. "You think she believes I'm him?" Her eyes glistened, and for a long moment she didn't answer. Finally, she said softly, "I think she wants to believe." Silence stretched between them. Outside, the crimson moon began to rise higher, bathing the walls in a blood-red hue. The lines on his skin flared in response, twisting like a living script. The air seemed to pulse in sync with his heartbeat. "If I accept the bond," he said slowly, "what happens?" The princess stepped closer, her hand trembling as she reached for his. "If you accept, you won't just be bound to her. You'll awaken something she buried. A power tied to that first bond, something even she fears." He met her gaze. "You're saying it could bring him back?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Or destroy her completely." He swallowed hard. "Then why tell me this?" "Because," she said, stepping closer until her breath brushed his neck. "My mother made the law to keep him, but I think the stars made you to end it." The air around them grew still. He could hear his own pulse, the faint hum of the chamber trembling like a living heartbeat. She leaned in, her voice trembling. "If you go through with it, you might free her or damn yourself." Her words hung between them, charged and dangerous. Then suddenly, a sharp alarm cut through the air. The blue fire along the walls flared to white. The princess froze. "They've detected my passcode," she whispered. "The guards are coming." She grabbed his arm, pressing a small, glowing shard into his palm. A fragment of crystal etched with alien script. "Keep this hidden. It's a memory key. It holds what my mother tried to erase." He tried to ask what she meant, but the doors slid open with a hiss. 2 guards entered, their armor gleaming. "Princess," one barked, "you are not permitted here." She straightened, her calm mask snapping back into place. "I was delivering the prisoner his final rites," she said coldly. The guards bowed low. "Forgive us, heir. The queen has summoned you to the inner sanctum." Her eyes darted to him one last time. The fear in them was raw, unguarded. "Don't lose the shard," she murmured under her breath. "When the eclipse reaches its heart, it will show you the truth." Before he could reply, she turned sharply, her cloak swirling as she swept past the guards. The door sealed behind her with a metallic hiss. The chamber fell into silence again. He opened his hand. The crystal shard pulsed once, faintly warm. Inside it, for the briefest second, he thought he saw movement, a flicker of 2 figures standing beneath twin suns. He whispered to the empty room, "What did you hide, Queen?" Outside, the first drumbeat of the eclipse ritual thundered across the alien sky. The temple chamber was vast and silent, carved into the bones of the moon itself. The ceiling shimmered with veins of crystal that pulsed faintly with each beat of the planet's twin suns. The air was thick with incense, sweet and electric, filling the space between breaths with tension that felt almost alive. The human stood before the dais, his wrists unbound now but glowing faintly with the marks of the unfinished bond. They crawled up his arms like living constellations, pulsing softly in time with the rhythm of the eclipse outside. The queen stood across from him, still and regal, her long silken robes whispering against the obsidian floor. The chamber lights flickered with every pulse of her heart. He could almost feel her presence pressing against him like heat. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then, without warning, she said quietly, "When I first saw you, I thought the stars had mocked me." Her tone was softer than he'd ever heard it, the sharp edge dulled by something that almost resembled grief. He looked up, cautious. "Mocked you how?" She turned slightly, eyes fixed on the flickering twin moons above the skylight. "You carry his face," she said, almost in a whisper. "His voice, even the defiance in your eyes. Every part of you reminds me of him. The man who made me forget I was meant to rule." Her words hung in the charged air, trembling between memory and pain. She stepped closer, and for the first time he saw not a queen, but a woman. One who had outlived too many ghosts. "He came from your world," she said, her voice steady now. "A crash like yours, a wound like yours. And I, fool that I was, chose to save him." Her gaze drifted, unfocused, lost somewhere far away. "He taught me what your kind called laughter. He taught me how to hold fire without fear. But when the war came, he turned that same fire against us. He burned half the council fleet to escape. I watched the sky fall because of him." She stopped then, her breath trembling just enough to betray the memory's ache. They told me love made me weak, that the empire would never follow a queen who bled for an alien. So I gave them a law instead, one that turned love into duty, mercy into ritual. Her eyes lifted to his again, silver irises shimmering. You see now why I cannot let you go. The cosmos sent you again. Perhaps as punishment, perhaps as redemption. I no longer know which. He stood in silence, the weight of her confession pressing down on him like the gravity of her world. The markings on his body pulsed brighter, feeding off the intensity in her gaze. You think I'm him, he said softly. No, she murmured. I think you are what's left of him, the part that fate refused to kill. She reached out then, her hand trembling as she traced one of the glowing lines on his chest. And I cannot decide whether to finish what began, or finally end it. A low hum filled the chamber as she gestured toward the ancient symbols etched into the floor. Step into the circle, she commanded. He hesitated. You said the bond was balance, not punishment. It is both, she said. Half the right will reveal the truth. The other half will decide your place in it. The floor lit up beneath them, lines of silver and crimson snaking outward like veins of light. The energy rose in spirals, wrapping around them, pulling them together. Her hand pressed to his chest, and warmth flooded his veins. For a moment, everything stopped. The smell of the air, the sound of the eclipse drums outside, even the beating of his heart. Then it came, a vision sharp and blinding. He saw two figures in another lifetime standing before the same circle. The queen, younger, softer, and a human with eyes like firelight. They were laughing. Then the light shifted, and the laughter turned to screams, the circle collapsing, stars falling like ash. He gasped, falling to one knee as the vision shattered. When he looked up, the queen was trembling. Her eyes glowed, tears glistening like molten metal. I thought I had buried him, she whispered. I thought the law would make me forget. Her fingers hovered near his mark again, trembling as though she wanted to complete the bond but couldn't. But when I touched you, I felt it, his heartbeat. Not memory, not illusion, his soul. He stepped back, his pulse roaring in his ears. You don't want me, he said quietly. You want your ghost back. She looked stricken, almost human in that moment. You think I don't know that? She said, her voice breaking. Every night I feel the bond screaming beneath my skin. I tried to make peace with the void, and the stars gave me you instead. Tell me, what am I to do with that? Outside, thunder rolled across the alien horizon as the eclipse deepened. The queen lowered her hand, her voice barely a whisper. Half the right is done. You bear my mark now. You cannot undo what's begun. She turned away, as if afraid to face the truth in his eyes. From the shadows near the temple wall, unseen until now, the younger princess stood watching. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the raw ache of what she'd just witnessed. Tears streamed down her cheeks, glowing silver in the dim light. She pressed her palm to her heart, her breathing shallow, torn between sorrow and fury. Her mother's words echoed through the air. Life to life. The princess whispered back into the silence. Then whose life will it take this time? The queen froze, sensing her daughter's presence but saying nothing. The chamber's light flickered one last time before the eclipse shadows swallowed everything in deep red. The human skin still glowed faintly with the queen's mark, only half-formed. Alive, unfinished, dangerous. He felt it pulse once, hard enough to shake his breath. Something ancient stirred inside him, something not entirely his own. The queen turned back, her expression unreadable, her voice quiet but sharp as a blade. When the light returns, she said, the bond must be completed, or the old curse will claim us both. The younger princess's tear caught the light, falling soundlessly to the floor like a drop of molten silver. The moment it touched the stone, the circle flared back to life, bright enough to cast shadows on all three of their faces. None of them yet realized the bond had already chosen its path. Under the crimson eclipse, the air hummed with ancient power. The temple spires pulsed like veins of molten light, each beat syncing with the queen's breath as she stepped forward. Her robe of black silk trailed across the marble floor, whispering like something alive. Before her knelt the human, stripped of armor, blood dried at the corners of his mouth, but his eyes steady, unflinching even before a goddess. Around them, the high sisters formed a perfect circle, their chants blending with the storm above until language itself became a rhythm, a heartbeat, a command. When the queen extended her hand, the bond mark on her palm flared open, forming a living pattern of light that reached for his chest. "You understand," she said softly. "Once begun, this cannot end without death." He nodded, his voice raw. "Then let it be death or truth, but no more lies." Her lips trembled, not from fear, but from something older, regret. The moment her palm touched his skin, every nerve in his body ignited. His mind was pulled inward, through memories not his own, visions of burning citadels, shattered vows, and a single face, her face, standing before a human soldier long ago. He gasped as centuries unfolded within seconds. He saw the queen's youth, her laughter, the day she loved a man who swore peace but brought ruin. He saw her exile, her rise, her vow to make love a crime so no one could ever make her weak again. The bond dug deeper, seeking truth, and suddenly he felt her seeing him. His memories of Earth, of war, of the way he once held someone who now existed only as a ghost. Their pain became one, neither alien nor human, only two broken souls trying to rewrite what time destroyed. Then the air split with a scream, not the queen's, but her daughter's. The younger princess burst through the temple doors, her eyes wild with tears, silver flames dancing down her arms. "Stop the rite!" she shouted. "By the law of eclipse, I claim him." The high sisters gasped, their chant collapsing into silence. Even the storm paused, as if the sky itself didn't dare move. The queen turned, fury and disbelief warring across her face. "You know that law was buried with the heretics." But the girl stepped forward, light searing the floor with each step. "Then let it be reborn with me." The human struggled to rise, his veins still burning from the half-completed bond. "What are you doing?" he rasped. The princess looked at him, tears cutting through the glow on her cheeks. "Saving you, from her, from the past, from the curse that began before we were born." She pressed her glowing hands to his chest, and for an instant he felt two heartbeats, hers and the queen's, colliding in him, neither yielding. The temple trembled, the sacred columns cracked. The queen's mark flared brighter, clashing against her daughter's light in waves of violent color. The high sisters fell to their knees as the storm above split into twin spirals of red and white. "The rite cannot hold two claims," one of them cried. The queen's voice rose above the chaos. "Then let it tear the world apart before I yield him." Lightning struck the altar, the seal shattered, and in that final blinding surge, all three of them were thrown into the air, bound by a chain of light that refused to break. When the light finally faded, the temple was in ruins. The queen lay motionless, the princess clutching her, whispering words that no one could hear. The human staggered to his feet, smoke rising from his skin where the marks of both women now burned, one crimson, one silver. Outside, the eclipse still hung frozen in the sky, as if time itself waited for him to decide which bond he would honor, or which one would destroy them all. The empire burned like a living wound beneath the frozen eclipse. Once glorious spires fell into dust as banners of crimson and silver tore through the night. Every world under the queen's rule had chosen a side. Some swore loyalty to her unbroken will, others rallied behind her daughter's defiance. And at the center of it all stood the human, scarred by the marks of both women, his body a battlefield for love and law alike. He'd once thought he understood war, but this was something older, something that sang through blood and memory. Armies marched not for territory, but for meaning. The queen's fleets darkened the skies with ships carved from obsidian metal, their cores humming with the light of dying stars. The princess's forces, younger and reckless, wielded weapons born of forbidden fusion, half magic, half science, powered by the resonance that had begun inside the human's heart the moment the bond split in two. Every time he breathed, he could feel the empire tearing itself apart, echoing the fracture within him. When he stepped into the city of Olaris, the ground shook beneath his boots. Smoke curled around the ruins, and holographic banners of the Queen's crest flickered weakly on half-collapsed towers. The civilians didn't run, they bowed. Some called him the Bridge, others the Curse. Both names felt true. He'd tried to stay neutral, but neutrality had become treason in a war fought over his blood. The marks on his chest pulsed in opposite rhythms now, one in wrath, one in sorrow, and each pulse brought visions not his own. The Queen's voice whispered of duty, of control, of the love she'd once buried to protect her kind. The princess's voice answered with defiance, urging him to break the chains that had enslaved both their hearts. At night, he stood atop the city walls watching the horizon burn. In the distance, the Queen's fleet descended, red light carving across the storm. Beside him, the princess rested her head against the cold stone, her voice quiet. "She'll never stop until you're hers," she murmured. He didn't answer. He couldn't. The truth was, part of him still felt her inside his mind. Her warmth, her grief, the ghost of that half-completed bond. "You think you can choose," the princess said softly, lifting her gaze to meet his. "But love isn't a weapon, and it isn't a crown. It's a fracture, and you are standing on it." He turned to her, the silver glow of her eyes reflected in his. "Then tell me what to do." She smiled faintly, brokenly. "When the resonance begins, you'll know." But she didn't explain what that meant. She only reached up, tracing the silver scar that coiled over his chest, the one that mirrored her own. "When it comes," she whispered, "don't let it consume you." The next dawn shattered in flame. The Queen herself descended from orbit, her warship's shadow stretching across the smoking plains. Her voice echoed through the communication channels, calm and absolute. "Return him to me, or the stars will remember your defiance as ash." The princess stood her ground, her fleet trembling above the capital, engines screaming like wounded beasts. Below, the human felt the pull between them rip him apart. His marks burned so fiercely that light poured through his veins, spilling from his eyes in streams of fire. When the two armadas fired their first volleys, something ancient awoke inside him. The resonance, pure, cosmic, and infinite, burst outward like a pulse across the heavens. Ships halted mid-battle. Energy streams bent and froze. Across thousands of worlds, beings looked up and felt it, the echo of something both divine and human, a sound that wasn't sound at all but meaning itself. The war didn't stop because of mercy. It stopped because reality shivered. And in the silence that followed, the human fell to his knees as the sky cracked open. Not with light, but with memory. Two voices spoke his name in unison, one loving, one pleading, and the stars themselves seemed to lean closer to hear which one he would answer. The capital was nothing but dust and echoing heartbeats. The once golden towers of the empire lay split and molten, glowing faintly beneath a blood-colored sky. The air shimmered with the static of dying power cores, the scent of scorched glass and rain mixing like grief made physical. Amid the wreckage, three figures stood, alone in the silence that had swallowed a civilization. The Queen, cloaked in cracked armor that still radiated command. The daughter, bloodied but unbent, her eyes burning like stars refusing to fade. And between them, the human, his body trembling, veins alive with molten light that pulsed like a second heartbeat. The war had burned out hours ago, not because one side had won, but because the resonance that had erupted from him had silenced all weapons, fried every command network, and left even the most loyal soldiers kneeling in confusion. The bond, unfinished, unstable, alive, now bridged him to both of them. He could feel their hearts through his own. The Queen's fury wrapped in centuries of loss. The daughter's courage burning with new hope. They were two halves of the same pain, mirrored across generations. The Queen took a step forward, her voice low but carrying through the ruins. "You've done what no one else could," she said. You stopped our war. You reminded us what we are capable of. But now you will finish the bond. With me. She extended her hand, her eyes fierce and wet with emotion she would never admit. The law demands it. Life for life. This is how our worlds heal. The princess stepped between them. No, she said, shaking her head. You mean this is how you heal, mother? You want to rewrite what he is so you can forget who you lost. Her voice broke on the word. You taught me to rule with truth, not tradition. The queen's expression cracked for just a moment. Tradition is all that keeps us from chaos. Then let it break, the daughter said. Let something new begin. The humans stood silent as their words collided in the air like blades. Every sound, every breath, vibrated against the energy inside him. His vision blurred until the two of them, queen and daughter, seemed to merge into a single outline. Two souls divided by grief. Two lives chained to the same ancient lie. And in that moment he understood. The law was never about protection or honor. It was a curse born from loss, a desperate attempt to bind love so it could never hurt again. But love wasn't meant to be bound. He raised his hand, light spilling from his fingertips like dawn made solid. No more laws, he whispered, his voice barely human. No more chains. Both of them froze. The queen's eyes widened, not in rage, but in something like fear. What are you doing? He looked at her, then at the princess and smiled faintly. I'm setting us free. He pressed his palm to his chest, right where the marks burned brightest. For a heartbeat the world went still. Then, with a sound like the breaking of stars, he tore the bond apart from within. The light that burst out was blinding, pouring into the sky, into the soil, into the very bones of the empire. The ancient law, the one carved into every generation's memory, shattered. Across the galaxy, the symbols of subservience and claim faded from every being marked by it. The queen screamed, not in pain but in release. The daughter fell to her knees, tears streaming as the light wrapped around her. And the human, he stood in the center of it all, glowing like the heart of a newborn sun. When the light faded, the markings were gone. The energy that had once chained them was now a gentle hum in the air, like a song finally at rest. The queen looked at him with eyes no longer full of command, only sorrow. You broke our bond, she whispered. He smiled softly. No, I made it real. The daughter reached for his hand, but before she could touch him, his body flickered, fading like smoke caught in wind. He looked between them, eyes filled with something unspoken. Then he said the words that would echo for centuries. Love isn't claimed, it's chosen. And with that, the human vanished into the light, leaving mother and daughter standing together beneath a quiet, broken sky as the first dawn of a new empire began to rise. The twin suns rose over the shattered horizon, their light painting the ruins of the capital in gold and crimson. Smoke curled through the air like ghosts refusing to leave, and the wind carried the faint scent of scorched metal and something bittersweet, like rain after a fire. The city was silent now, its people hidden, its armies gone. Only 3 figures remained in the heart of what was once the empire. The queen, the daughter, and the human who had torn their fate from the grip of law itself. He stood at the center of the courtyard, unarmed, his chest still glowing faintly where the marks had once burned. The resonance inside him had calmed, yet the energy around them trembled like it remembered his power. The younger princess stood beside him, her hand gripping his, her eyes wide and unblinking as the sky began to shimmer. From above, the queen descended in a flash of light, no longer a ruler in armor, but a mother with grief written across her face. You should not have come, the human said quietly. The queen's gaze met his. I came to end what I began. For a heartbeat it seemed peace might hold. Then the horizon exploded. A final warship, an automated relic of the old regime, had awakened. Its orbital cannon aimed downward, targeting the remnants of the royal bloodline. The sensors, still loyal to the dead law, locked on to the resonance signature shared by the queen, her daughter, and the human. The light gathered above, bright enough to turn the morning sky white. The princess looked up, terror in her voice. "It's targeting us." The queen whispered something in her own tongue, a prayer or a farewell. "I can't stop it," she said. The human turned toward the rising light, his expression calm in a way that broke her heart. "Then I can." He moved before either of them could react. The markings on his chest reignited, not as chains this time, but as living light. He stepped in front of the princess, placing himself between her and the falling energy. The sky cracked open. The beam fell, a sun-made weapon raw and merciless. It struck him square in the chest. For a moment, time froze. The queen screamed. The princess reached for him, but the heat drove her back. His body arched against the force, light pouring from his skin in streams of silver and gold. The ground shook. His heartbeat thundered in the air like a drum calling the universe to witness. The blast that should have annihilated them instead bent inward, drawn into him, consumed by the same power that once bound them. He turned his head slightly, eyes meeting the queen's across the storm. "Tell her." His voice cracked under the weight of the energy. "Tell her it wasn't prophecy. It was choice." Then the light consumed him. When the dust settled, silence followed, total, sacred silence. The twin suns hung low, their rays cutting through the settling haze. The queen stumbled forward through the heat, her armor cracked and smoking, until she reached them. The human lay motionless on the ground, his skin faintly glowing. The younger princess knelt beside him, trembling, her hands pressed against his chest. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave us." The queen knelt opposite her, her old pride gone, tears carving paths through the ash on her cheeks. Together they listened, one heartbeat fading, the other growing stronger. The glow from the princess's hands deepened, spreading through her veins in threads of gold. The resonance he had carried, the energy that once divided them, now flowed into her. The queen touched her daughter's face, awe and sorrow mingling. "He gave you his light." The princess looked up, her eyes shining brighter than the sun's. "No, mother," she said softly. "He gave us both." From the still air rose a pulse, gentle at first, then spreading outward. The city's ruins caught the glow, metal and stone humming in harmony. Across the planet, the dead lands began to stir. The old sigils, once symbols of ownership and law, reformed as patterns of unity, two interwoven circles pulsing in the same rhythm. The resonance had not died. It had changed. The queen stood, gazing toward the sky as the suns climbed higher. For the first time in centuries, she bowed not to a ruler, not to a god, but to the man who had rewritten the meaning of power. "He's gone beyond us," she said, voice breaking, "but his heart remains." The princess pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the steady pulse beneath her skin. His heartbeat, her heartbeat, one and the same. "Then he's still here." Above them, the twin suns aligned. Between their light shimmered a third glow, soft, human, infinite. It spread across the heavens, connecting the stars like veins of living gold. The queen looked to her daughter, and for the first time, the empire was not ruled by fear or decree, but by something older and greater. A new dawn began, born not of conquest or blood, but of a single act of love that refused to die. And in that light, beneath two suns, the echo of his final heartbeat carried on, quietly shaping the universe he left behind.